Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Who would have imagined that the something is hidden behind Bee Gees' Barry Gibb's mask? Really intimidating. In this video, we'll discover Barry's wife's disclosures, Linda, who ultimately chose to disintegrate 5 decades of deceptions and unresolved issues regarding their union. Despite capturing the public's affection through unrelenting displays of affection, the Barry Gibb's marriage's reality has now emerged. In the past, the Bee Gees were among the most cherished and honoured music clusters in the area. The group was made up of Barry, Robin, 3 brothers, and Gibb, Maurice. In addition to their amazing, the brothers' careers included some pretty fascinating, private lives. At this moment of them, just one remains, and he has been giving some interesting observations. Lately, despite all of his achievements, his private life had witnessed its share of difficult circumstances. He lost both of his brothers, which was somewhat difficult for him. He also had ups and downs in his romantic life, and downs before falling in love with Linda. Gray was Miss Edinburgh once. Barry Gibb's and Linda's lengthy marriage has gained a large following, similar to his distinctive music and style. The partnership has endured a great deal, many difficulties. However, there have been numerous rumors regarding their personal lives because to their strong relationship. Many people were taken aback when Barry opened light regarding a few lesser-known aspects of his marriage and his life. Barry possessed an incredible career, but he's also had a lengthy and contented union with Linda, who Miss Edinburgh once was. They reconnected. Married in 1970, got married in the late 1960s, and have remained together since then, raising 5 children in the process. The Gibbs experienced various difficult moments, such as Barry's brothers passing away and coping with the demands of celebrity. However, Barry and Linda's bond has remained solid, demonstrating the depth of their love. When Robin Gibb and Barry Maurice kicked, they didn't know how to get off the Bee Gees. They had grown enormous. The youthful group had relocated to Queensland. From Manchester, Australia, the place where they made their initial huge break in 1966 with Spicks and Specks, it actually pushed them into the spotlight. In the same year, Barry received married to Maureen Bates, his first wife, at the age of 19. He has stated that he was already married to Maureen by the time he met Linda, the Rocks. They lived together for a brief period of time prior to disbanding in July 1970. It's believed that the demands of celebrity and the pressures of his musical career played a part in their split. Barry held on to a great deal about how he and Linda got together under concludes, only to disclose that Jimmy Savile presented them. He just revealed regarding how losing his brothers has affected him. He is afraid of dying in a new television interview. Barry Gibb was rather uncomfortable moment when Piers Morgan inquired regarding his history with the former Linda Gray, a Scottish beauty queen, during his Life Stories interview. The conversation scheduled to air on ITV tomorrow changed when Barry began to reflect about how they initially got together in 1967 at a top of the recording of the Pops. He brought up Linda, who was only 17 years old and had recently crowned Miss Edinburgh. There are undoubtedly some bizarre tales from that moment, but some of them are, he said, unbelievably. When Piers demanded more, Barry clarified, saying, No, just her name would chill you to your core. Barry thought back to his first encounter with Linda, which coincidentally was the same the day the Beegs achieved their highest-ranking debut. He was unable to envision his life without that particular time. It marked the beginning of their shared adventure. He sensed an immediate bond, referring to it as love at first impression. It was a charming instance that truly stood out in the midst of the chaos of the realm of entertainment. Barry, as well, revealed that he had lost his 3 brothers, including Andy, a solo performer, who died from drugs at the age of 30 addiction. He further mentioned that Linda had been transported from Scotland to London by the individual who first introduced them, although they made a joke about not bringing up Savile when the audience shouted no at his wife. After only 2 months, Barry and Linda got married. Linda was born in 1950. She was crowned Miss Scotland. Edinburgh. She began dating Barry on September 1st, 1970, and married, which is Barry's birthday as well. They've had a strong relationship with many highs and lows, and downs, acknowledging the peaks and valleys of the Bee Gees, and addressing the melancholy of losing Barry's bandmates and brothers, Robin and Maurice. Linda has largely maintained out of the public eye over time, concentrating on her family and providing for them, Barry's career as a musician. Even after their son after more than 50 years of marriage, Ashley saw that their love is still there. Equally powerful, they continue to adore one another. Other now, as they did back then, he said in a 2017 Peers interview, the life stories of Morgan. 3 years later, after being married, they welcomed their Stephen. Their first child was born in 1973. In 1991, Alexandra, the youngest, was born. In a 2012 interview, Gibbs revealed the Roxborough report indicates that the family is the most significant aspect of his existence, immediately following his passion for music. Hess stated that Linda has consistently been a stronghold for their large family, a band that initially had trouble establish themselves in Australia, unexpectedly demonstrated their extraordinary abilities. Songwriters, although they were still teens, were capable of creating both poignant ballads that evolved into contemporary classics, as well as a truly distinctive, eccentric sort of pop. Music such as To Love Somebody and more strange tunes hung out with the words, such as UFO Barker and Mrs. the Refrigerator at Gillespie's, which was far deeper than psychedelic, but still intriguing. They became really famous. In a few vintage clips according to a documentary, Maurice Gibb that he owned 6 Rolls-Royces by his 21st birthday. However, when I mentioned that, Gibb simply rolled his eyes. He said, Maurice, in a manner that declared himself to be the long-suffering older sibling, was the monarch of overstatement. That remained the same. He owned a single Rolls-Royce, yet he cherished to make each tale seem more significant than life. However, he clarified that the Bee Gees swiftly rose to enormous fame, and it's difficult for anyone to manage. Notoriety is one thing, but extreme renown, and it has the potential to ruin you. You let go of reality. It is similar to being ensnared in a hurricane while you're not even aware of it. It's impossible to tell what tomorrow is coming up, and you don't have any notion of whether the things you're working on will strike a big blow. Additionally, remember that we were only children. As soon as they were well known, then the Bee Gees split up, or instead, Robin and Barry did. Not one of the brothers played a distinct significance in the band, and they ultimately got into a fight over who was the frontman. The Bee Gees initially split up in 1969 but reconciled. Several years later, despite the fact that their popularity began to wane. By 1972, they didn't know who their audience was. Therefore, they decided to release To Whom It May. Concern is the title of the album. In a desperate attempt to revitalize their jobs, they relocated to the United States and took their record label's recommendation to simply have enjoy composing music and get started. A few dance songs. If you have any information regarding pop music, you are aware of how that as it happened. Jive Talking, You, and More Hits Should Be Dancing, the wildly successful Saturday Night Fever's soundtrack, 45 million records sold, and the overall dominance of the US charts by a number of top charting songs. It's quite crazy that the Bee Gees, who made about 220,000 million records, it could seem as though they failed to live up to their expectations. In his later life, Robin truly articulated that sensation, even leaving an interview in the front row of Radio 4 when he became irritated. He frequently discussed how his brothers, and he failed to receive the deference they were due. The problem appears to be the enormous distance between their enormous success and the opinions of critics. Both of their compositions, which they wrote for both for themselves and for other people, is not to be forgotten. Not long ago, Kenny Rogers played the penned hit from his BG Islands at Glastonbury in the Stream, and it was so well received by the audience that he had to sing it once more. However, there's still this propensity to view the Bee Gees in a patronizing manner, as if they're a joke or something that makes you feel ashamed. Rowley. It makes sense that they would find that really annoying after $220 million for the sale of all those albums. People still appear to care more, though. More about their appearance than their music. It represents a significant change from how things were in the middle of the 1970s. Maurice's death. The Bee Gees' journey came to an end in 2003. A conclusion. Barry described how Robin wanted to continue, but he was hesitant. We can't keep calling ourselves that, the Bee Gees without Mo, which resulted in a few disputes. Barry stated that Robin was quite worried about still going by the Bee Gees. He most likely was aware of his sickness for a few years before things became serious. He didn't want to be seen spiritually as someone who is having health issues problems, so he kept it away from Barry. After Barry discovered what was continuing, it was understandable why Robin was so willing to continue moving forward in spite of everything. Barry Gibb acknowledged that losing his siblings, Robin in particular, was quite uncomfortable. What most troubled him is the belief that their connections were far away during the latter days of their lives. He wishes they weren't near or speaking with them before they passed. Barry thought back on his frequently tumultuous friendship with Robin. Even so, they made an effort to get back in touch after Morica's passing and even talked about once more working together. Their ideas never really came to pass beyond a small number of appears in tandem. However, ultimately, he discovered that, as the final Bee Gee to survive, he was responsible for preserving the music. That the music goes on is important to me, and I'll do everything I can to encourage that. That's my objective. Thus, he embarked on a tour and began reproducing albums. And eventually, he had a change of heart towards the Bee Gees' heritage. He tells me a story before he leaves, tale about his daughter's exposure to staying on the radio, alive, as you drive to dinner. They increased the volume and opened the windows, revealing individuals on the street began to dance. He states, "It's not able to describe how it occurred, but those items appear to have gotten into the culture, to the extent that, in my opinion, this melody will never be heard again." Barry and Linda, his devoted wife, are the ideal illustration of a pair that truly understands how to get married last. She has served as the motivation for some of the most exquisite songs in the Bee Gee-like Let There Be in words in particular, which are devoted to her love. Linda is unquestionably a remarkable woman, and she even won the title of Miss Edinburgh in 1967, showcasing her remarkable beauty. People frequently believe that well-known couples have everything worked out and is flawless. Lives, families, and relationships. However, for the Gibbs, that isn't the case. Family. Following the death of his brothers in 2003 and 2012, Maurice and Robin Barry was confused and unsure of how to proceed. He even considered leaving everything behind until Linda walked in and pushed him. You still have your own, so get off your life. You must live, she said to him that evening. Because of Linda's, Barry returned to the stage with encouragement. He began his initial solo tour in 2014, traveling with Stephen, his kid, and Maurice's daughter, Samantha, is his niece. He claimed that having fun together felt so natural, and having them was wonderful. Next to him. In 2016, Barry dropped in The Now, his debut solo album, with assistance from his sons Stephen and Ashley Toe composed the music. Following the loss of his Barry, Andy Gibb and youngest brother understood how difficult stardom could be. However, he acknowledges Linda for dragging him away from the disorder and addiction that impacted each of his three brothers. The brothers had to face their own demons. However, my spouse was a woman who wasn't, I'll have it, Barry informed the protector. She never let me enter in that direction. I had to cope with given that brothers are essentially everywhere. However, I was fortunate. As an experienced rock star, Barry had numerous opportunities to leave his marriage if he so desired. However, he should be commended for remaining devoted to Linda and its reciprocal street. Former model Linda has had her fair share of admirers. Barry recalls a crazy incident at the Record Los Angeles plant when the renowned Steve McQueen attempted to entice Linda to leave on his motorbike. He realized that merely how beautiful Linda is. She received a ton of similar to him in terms of attention. However, despite all the temptation, Linda remained by Barry, demonstrating just how powerful they have a bond. Barry Gibb became extremely, at a very young age, into music, although other children were occupied with toy play. When engaging in normal childhood activities, Barry was all about establishing a career in music. He was able to determine early on that he had a significant love for music, and he created. His goal is to sing and have fun, using various instruments. When he discovered some other music enthusiasts, that's when his actual musical journey began away. Rather than playing together, playing electronic games, or simply relaxing with Barry and his younger twin, are pals, Maurice and Robin, brothers, along with a few close friends concentrating on improving their musical abilities. Their time was devoted singing and having dreams about beginning their own musical group. Barry, his brothers, and a group of buddies formed a skiffle band, known in 1957 as the Rattlesnakes when Barry was 11 years old. Skiffle is a fashion that blended folk, jazz and blues, was incredibly well liked in the UK in that period. Barry was the main slide guitarist and vocalist for the Maurice and Robin, with the Rattlesnakes including acoustic guitars and vocals. Paul Kenny Tubuse and Frost, two friends from the neighborhood, additionally helped voices. As soon as Barry and his brothers desired to pursue a career in music, their father was with it. He recognized their potential and was pleased to assist as they accomplished their objectives. Their initial public appearance, the show took place at a tiny theatre in December 1957, with Barry's dad in tow. The initial plan was for the team to lip-syncing to music was a common practice, a pastime for young people in the area. Regretfully, not everything was successful. They intended to perform 78 revolutions per minute, delicate record, but while traveling to the location, their intended lip-sync performance was destroyed by this unanticipated catastrophe. The men were required to perform live without any pre-recorded music that initially appeared to be a disappointment, yet it ultimately being fortunate. Robin, Barry, and Maurice took the initiative when it came to its time to sing sans accompaniment. There, the impromptu live performance was fantastic, response from the audience, transforming into a show to remember. After observing how as excited as the crowd was, Barry and his brothers were motivated to enter a career in music. They began to understand. They had a special talent for writing songs. This instance marked a significant shift in their musical development, providing them with the self-assurance they required to pursue their aspirations of performing and singing. The hum from that performance was very beneficial. Launched their musical careers. With all the good energy and excitement of when Barry and the boys performed live, they maintained perfecting their musical skills and worked diligently to pursue their goal of pursuing a career in music. In addition, the oldest BG opened openly, discussing his dread of dying, particularly following the deaths of his three brothers, with every defeat hammering him hard. Barry Gibb discussed the unique bond. He claimed that he and his brothers constantly attempted to seize each other's attention, but it was quite effective, collectively, both in life and in creating music. He praised Robin's sharp sense of humor. Given Maurice's laid-back disposition, highlighting how their distinctive qualities made the team even more powerful. Andy's loss in the family had a difficult time in his 30s, and Barry pointed out that it created a void that never truly filled. Although they continued, realizing that everything were distinct, although not all of them were collectively. Following the arrival of their first Gibb and Gray, the child moved from Miami, Florida to England via the entire family. Gibb stated that Heckerished Miami because it brought back memories of his Australian childhood. Nowadays, Gibb and Gray continue to reside in an upscale, elegant country villa on the waterfront Miami Club, but they also maintain a location in England.